This plant here is kangaroo grass, Gammonian menagerie. This is a very important food plant. It has an edible seed that we can harvest and collect, and it can be grounded up into a flour sauce to make dampers and breads. In land management, this plant is important the way we manage it. We use fire to manage this plant, to promote it to grow, and to bring a lot of our native grazing animals down into an area who use this plant for their food. By bringing them into one certain area, we then know that they are predictable to be hunted for our food. Here we have the bottle brush. These come in very many different beautiful colours. The bottle brush here is an important one because it produces nectar, and that nectar can be used for us as a sweet energy treat. Often you will follow little pollinators during the day, little insects, and they will come and they will tell you when it's really high in its nectar source. And then we can go and collect it straight off the plant or soak it in some water and drink that water for a sweet drink. We have the native flax lily. And so native flax lily has lots of different uses. They all produce a fruit, but there's only certain types of them that we can actually collect and eat. Others, the fruit's inedible. All of them though have this really useful leaf, and we can pick this leaf out and we can weave with it and make nets and baskets and traps and all sorts of things. Very, very good for making cordage and rope. And that reason being is because when they're fresh green like this, we can make our rope straight away without having to dry it out and process it first. And then when it dries, it gets tougher, the rope. So it's a really good plant for that, for making rope on the go. We can also use it in hunting. You pick out a little bit, and often they have a hollow end, which produce a sort of a whistle sound when you blow into them. If you play it the right way, you will actually imitate a bird that's in distress, and it will actually bring out a snake. The snake will come looking for that bird, and then we hunt the snake, hit it on the head, and that's a bit of bush tucker as well. Next to me is this lovely little ground cover, austral bugle or self-heal, and as the name suggests, it's a bush medicine. So there's many different ways that we can use this, but probably the easiest way on the go and things, how it was used was, we'd grab a leaf, you basically make a poultice with it, so you chew it, and then you apply it straight to wounds, cuts, bleeding, all that sort of stuff. So by chewing it, you start to get those active chemicals and constituents in it that help to heal. And this will heal a wound really, really quick. You can just hold it on like a band-aid, like that, and even things right up to gangrene, it'll heal. So it's a very important medicine plant. So here we have a very special plant with lots of uses. This has many names as well: lomandra, mat rush, dirami, bush rice. Now, the really important food part of it is the seed. Over the summer months and into autumn, you can collect seed off this plant. And it looks a lot like a grain of rice. And that seed can be ground up and made into a flour sauce to then be made into a damper or a bread. Also, we can pick some of the leaves. And you'll notice at the bottom of the leaf, there is a white base. Now, this white base is quite important as well, because although it's only a small portion of food, it gives you carbohydrates, it keeps you hydrated, it has a water content, and it has lots of good nutrients and minerals in it. And as you can see, you can get quite a lot of it if you need it. And so it's a good one to remember if we have nothing else out there in the bush, to just keep us going and to keep us from starving, basically. After we use this, we can then flip it over and split the leaf. And then we can start to weave with it, make rope, cordage, nets, baskets, mats, all sorts of things. Hence the name mat rush. And finally, we get a digging stick, dig down, pull up the root, pound that root up into a fine powder, and use it on bites and stings and all sorts of things like that. So food, fibre, medicine, one plant. We have a very special plant here today. This one is native indigo, and this is our fishing plant. So how this works is, in the old times, fish traps were laid out through the river, and those fish traps would often divert fish into certain areas. And by diverting a fish into a waterhole that didn't have running currents and things running through it, this plant would then become very useful. Because how this plant works is by grabbing the leaves and the roots and crushing them up and throwing them into that waterhole, they help to starve the water of oxygen. And by doing that, the fish become stunned and slow down and often float to the surface. And then they could just be scooped out, taken back to the camp and cooked and eaten. So this is False Sarsaparilla, and it has many uses. We can collect the leaves and the flowers and make a lovely calming tea. It's also a vine, so we can collect the vine parts of the plant and use it to bind tools together like a stone axe to a wooden handle. The flowers come out at a certain time of year, and in that same period is often when the fish, the native fish in our rivers, are getting more active. And so it's a good time to go down and do a little bit of fishing. So thanks for coming on this journey with me today through these beautiful Forecourt Gardens at the National Museum of Australia, learning about some of the wonderful plants that my people have been using for thousands of years. If you're interested in learning more about this stuff, go to www.yurbay.com.au and keep an eye on the National Museum of Australia's website. I'm Adam Shipp, and again I thank you for listening and coming on this journey with me today. Go
Thank you so much, Adam. It was lovely to walk through the garden this afternoon on a grey day, and remember when it was a bit sunny. Before we throw to questions from our YouTube audience, I actually have one for you. What local bush food plants would you recommend for Canberra gardeners like me that maybe have a tendency to kill things?
Sure, Penny. Look, probably a plant that'd be really good for everyone to try and grow is the one that you would have just seen in that video, Lomandra or Mat Rush. It's quite a hardy plant. It can grow in a number of different types of soils. So, you know, any type of garden that you have at home, you should be able to get it going and thriving in your garden. Obviously, it has a number of uses, as you would have seen in the film. But also, you know, by putting these plants in your garden, it then helps you to be able to identify them when you're going out in these beautiful nature reserves and places around Canberra.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. It looks like we are starting to get some questions filtering in from YouTube, so that's great. Shakri would like to know if you have any particular favourites.
Yeah, so I have a long list of favourites, and if I was to list them all, we'd be here all day, so I won't do that. One that I can think of that's a local plant that's a really, really good one, a really tasty one, is Appleberry. Now, Appleberry, as the name suggests, has a lovely little fruit on it that comes out in spring. And the Appleberry, as the name suggests, has a beautiful sort of apple/custard flavour, and it's really, really delicious. Where you find that naturally is sort of right across the ACT, Cotter, Namadgi, Tipambilla, but you also do find it on Black Mountain and places. And it is a really good one that you could grow in your garden. It's a small growing vine, and you could even try it if you're in an apartment with a balcony, just in a pot with maybe some trellis. So a really good one to start with.
Thanks, Adam. From Gina. Hi, Adam. That's very nice of her to greet you. Are there any plants that you personally still use today?
Hi Gina, thanks for your question. Yeah, again, such a long list. If I rattled them all off, you'd be here all day. We do use, and I do use plants every day basically, and I make a point of continuing that connection to our beautiful plants by, harvesting from my own plants at home, native food plants that I have growing at home, berries, fruits, other things, tubers. Also our important medicinal plants, we use them, we take them when we're feeling a little bit ill. We have plants that we make into balms and things for, pain externally and other conditions. So yeah, Gina, I'm using these plants regularly.
Any that would survive as houseplants? I think Gina's got a follow-up question there.
Right, very good question again. And one that I can't be 100% sure. I've never sort of kept them in the house. One that probably comes to mind that you kind of do need to pull in, it's not a local plant, but over winter you kind of need to keep it inside, and that's lemon myrtle. And lots of people in Canberra try to grow that because it's a beautiful bush food and medicine plant, but it is one that you kind of actually have to keep inside over winter because of the really cool climate here. Another one that I can think that's local that might do well inside is mountain pepper or native pepper, as long as it gets a little bit of dappled sunlight throughout the day.
Okay. Bron wants to know, are there any plants in the Forecourt Garden that are dangerous?
Yes, so there are a number of plants. I mean, the plants that I didn't speak about, I think there was a plant on that video that I did mention that we use for fishing, the indigo. Now that plant, within the leaves, it has a chemical now, when you ingest that, and a lot of farmers don't like this plant because sheep will eat it. And when it's ingested, the chemical actually, your body turns that chemical into cyanide. So it becomes a poisonous plant then. So yeah, probably I'd say don't go ingesting that one.
Good advice. Cohen would like to know, how do I prepare the false sarsaparilla tea?
Thanks, Cohen. Yeah, I get that question all the time. Look, the easiest answer would be to go and collect a few leaves, assuming you have the plant in your garden. Collect, a handful of leaves, 3 to 5 leaves. Put them in a cup with boiling water and just let it steep for sort of 10 minutes and you can drink it. It's not going to have a lot of flavour when it's fresh. I find if you collect the leaves and dry them out, they'll have a bit more flavour. But you'll get the same sort of calming effects from it by just collecting it fresh, and that's what we kind of want, is those really nice calming effects at night. So,
Taryn wants to know, is it possible to make good jams of some of the plants?
Yeah, great question, Taryn. So again, you could probably try like that appleberry that I mentioned. So we'll probably be looking at some of our fruit plants. There's a kangaroo apple. That's a local fruiting plant as well that you could potentially try. There's, they'd probably be looking at the native fruiting plants. Look, some of the plants that obviously comes to mind straight away are things like lily pilly, because they already put that in jams, and quandongs. They're not local fruiting plants, but that's just gives you an example of some of our beautiful native fruiting plants all around Australia that are put into preserves and jams.
I think we've got quite a few chefs on the stream at the moment. Alicia would like to know, are there any particular plants that are good dried and used as a herb for flavouring dishes?
Yes, again, there's a number of plants. One that I can think of to mind, a local one, is one that we call cauliflower bush. And I should mention too, for all those people that are really interested in this, there's a really great guide called the Ngunnawal Plant Use Guide, and that would be what I would suggest to go out and grab, because that has an introduction to all our local plants. So the cauliflower bush is very much like a rosemary sort of flavour when you dry the leaves. I suggest grinding those leaves. They're a little bit sharp, So you'd want to grind it into a fine powder, and then you can just use it in cooking like you would rosemary. And another one, local plant, would be the native pepper. And again, that's just drying the leaf, grinding it, and then using it in all sorts of dishes. I mean, the native pepper, I believe, is better than the pepper that you get at the shop. It's absolutely amazing flavour.
Penelope, excellent name. From Sydney, wants to know, is there a native plant that you would recommend as a substitute for lettuce?
For lettuce. Okay, and again, there could be a number of plants all over the place. One plant that comes to mind that is kind of a lettuce sort of flavour in the leaf is the native violet. The leaves are only very small though, and they have very much a sort of a lettuce flavour when you pick and eat them. Generally, we use the flowers more with the native violet in medicine and things like that. The leaves do have like sort of a crispy lettuce flavour, so they're very small though compared to like the lettuce that you would buy in the shops and stuff. So.
Okay. I think we're going to be wrapping up in a little while. If you have any last questions, please type them as fast as you can. I think we've got one or two left in the stream. And from us here at the museum, what should we be keeping an eye out for as we come into winter?
Good question, Penny. So there's a number of plants obviously to keep an eye out for, and you know, when we think of winter, a lot of things shut down and a lot of things look dormant. One plant though that is really noticeable throughout winter is called the early wattle, and when you're driving down some of our main arterial roads like the Parkway, the Tuggeranong Parkway, places like that, you'll see it along the side of the road, and it's flowering, and it starts flowering around mid-May. And this is like an indicator plant or a seasonal plant, and it actually indicates for us that those really heavy fogs that we are all aware of in Canberra, you know, you've probably driven through them before, are starting to come in, and the snow will be starting to fall. And when the plant flowers, it generally gives you an indication of about 2 to 3 weeks before that's going to happen. So it's really important traditionally for people moving through the landscape to know that, okay, we need to set up camps that are, you know, warmer and better and more insulated, and look at places in the landscape where we can camp like that. But it's good for us even today to know to be prepared for that coming weather. So.
Bron would like to know if there are any online courses or face-to-face courses that you'd recommend looking into bush food.
Yeah, thanks, Bron. So I do offer I do offer face-to-face courses, and I go into, you know, offices and schools, and can do it for public as well. I mean, with the public, I ask that you usually get a group of at least 5 people or more to sort of make it viable for me. And now with this current situation that we're all going through at the moment, I am starting to look at options over, you know, Zoom and digital. So at the moment, I haven't got anything set up, but I am looking at that, Bron, and I'll give you guys all some information at the end just to keep your eye on, because I will definitely be looking at that digital platform option.
Oh, this one might be a bit tricky. Jamie wants to know if there are any plants that have ceremonial uses.
Yeah, there are. There are definitely plants out there that are used in ceremony, just due to, you know, sensitivities. I probably shouldn't mention too much into that, but sorry to answer it very broadly. Definitely, plants aren't just, for our culture, aren't just foods and medicines and fibres and things. They're spiritual. We have our spiritual connection to them. We use them in our ceremony to connect with the spiritual place and the dreaming and things. And so, you know, there's so many elements of our plants that are really, really important. It's not just the real physical kind of uses of them. So.
Rebecca's 3-year-old wants to know, do these plants grow in South America or just Australia? That's a great question.
Really great question, Rebecca. That's now, some of these plants probably do grow over in South America. They've probably been planted over there as well. And sometimes that actually causes issues. So, a plant that is native to one area of the world, if it's planted in another area, it can actually become like a weed, a invasive weed. And so there may be plants over in South America that are from Australia that have spread out all across their ecosystems and have actually become a pest. So that's something that we have to consider. Also, there are plants that are what we call or term universal, and that means that they're found in every country and every place in the world. One plant that I can think of, locally it's known kumbungi, and that is found all around the world, and it's referred to by different names all around the world. And one, English name is bulrush. So we find that plant all over the place. It's a universal plant.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen kumbungi all up and down the Murray. Peter wants to know if you have any resource suggestions for medicinal and food sources that suit different countries within Australia.
Okay, great question again. So locally here, probably start with the Ngunnawal Plant Use Guide. As an introduction, that's going to give you an introduction into the foods and some of the medicine plants that are available here locally, and that the Ngunnawal, Ngunnawal, Ngambri people have used for thousands of years and continue to use today. My people, Wiradjuri people, we have a guide as well, which I believe now is available online. You can download it. It's called the Wiradjuri Plant Use Guide, and that will really cover most of our country, which is inland New South Wales, central New South Wales, and covers a big area of central New South Wales and western parts of New South Wales. So, it's really to you to sort of look and research online where your country is, who your traditional nation and people are, and just have a look out there. I know there's heaps of stuff in Victoria, there's stuff down the south coast of New South Wales, guides and things that you can tap into. And there's also people, and that's what I probably recommend the most, is to really look out and tap into maybe Aboriginal businesses and things that are teaching this through tourism and through their business, like to really tap in and support them as well.
I think somebody might be doing some gardening this weekend. Tony wants to know if you were going to plant something this weekend, what would it be?
Wow, again, some great questions coming in. Thanks, Tony. Look, at the moment, great time from my perspective to plant any of our, particularly local native plants. And so Cook Country natives, there are a few nurseries around, Yarralumla Nursery and places that do sell them at the local native varieties. So yeah, look, I wouldn't give you a specific plant. I think anything really at this time of year is a really good time to do it. The reason I say this time of year is we're still in autumn. We've still got a little bit of warmth, although we're sort of shivering already, but we haven't really come into those really cold periods of winter yet. So if you get them in now, they'll kind of sit and sort of do their thing over the next few months, and then come spring, they've had enough time in the ground or in a pot or whatever to get sort of semi-established, and they'll really burst out and get some really good growth in spring. So maybe two plants I'll recommend to go and grab, Lomandra and the Appleberry that I mentioned. So there you go.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions, even though we can see that they're still coming in on the stream. We will try and get to all of those with at least a text-based response this afternoon. Thank you to everybody who joined us on the live stream, and thank you very much for Adam for joining us today. I've been Penny Vale from the National Museum, and we look forward to hosting you here again at the National Museum, whether it is online or eventually when we can once again host you here in our beautiful museum building on Acton Peninsula. Thank you so much and have a lovely afternoon.